Welcome to Modern Anarchy, the podcast exploring sex, relationships, and liberation. I'm your host, Nicole.
I tried to keep her quiet, but she's screaming inside of me. I tried to keep her hiding, oh, shut up. I tried to keep her quiet, but she's a wild, wild woman.
On today's episode, we have Sally. Join us for a conversation about the subconscious power structures that prevent us from embodying our pleasure. Together we talk about developing the language of pleasure, nerding out on the concept of hierarchy, and our collective need for connection. Hello, dear listener, and welcome back to Modern Anarchy. I am so delighted to have all of you pleasure activists from around the world tuning in for another episode each Wednesday. My name is Nicole. I am a sex and relationship psychotherapist with training in psychedelic integration therapy, and I am also the founder of the Pleasure Practice, supporting individuals in crafting expansive sex lives and intimate relationships. Dear listener, it is such a joy to be bringing these rich, juicy conversations to you with other theorists and thought leaders. We are pushing the edge of the conversation on expansive relationships, expansive pleasure and liberation, and Sally was such a source of wisdom and insight into anarchist theory that I think all of you dear listeners, or I know all of you dear listeners, are really going to love this episode. And the title, I talked to Sally about how I keep looking for this. Where is the anarchy of sex? Where is the anarchy of sex? And a year ago when I recorded this with Sally, they wisely reminded me that I need to write that. And we talked about even the hierarchy of books over podcasts, with books being more serious. And yeah, podcasts are just as valuable. And I am so, so delighted to be sharing this episode with you because unlike a book, you get to hear my full voice. You get to hear me work through the complexities of a year ago trying to find the language between wanting to use a dildo on someone and feeling also like with that same person, I didn't want to make out with them, right? Things that at the time I was really struggling with to understand the deconstruction of the intimacy escalator, right? The expectations of what intimacy should look like, and specifically sex, right? Just like the relationship escalator. There's a unconscious cultural expectation that sex looks like A, B, C, D. And so this conversation with Sally, I was getting into some of the nuance of unpacking our cultural messages about sex. And dear listener, you know this is not the last episode where I'll be talking about these concepts and ideas. And I'm so grateful that you're tuning in. I'm so grateful that you are learning and expanding with me because this is how we bring the pleasure revolution. All right, dear listener, if you want to liberate your pleasure, you can explore my offerings and resources at modernanarchypodcast.com, linked in the show notes below. And I want to say the biggest thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. You are supporting the long-term sustainability of the podcast, keeping this content free and accessible to all people, so thank you. If you want to join the Patreon community, get exclusive access into my research and personal exploration, then you can head on over to patreon.com/modernanarchypodcast, also linked in the show notes below. And with that, dear listener, please know that I'm sending you all my love, and let's tune in to today's episode. So the first question I ask each guest is, how would you introduce yourself to the listeners?
My name is Sally. I run a YouTube channel called Anrel, which is short for Anarcho-Relating. We're on hiatus right now, but I have some projects in the back burner. Yeah, I'm a relationship anarchist and a theorist and I should have come up with a better way to introduce myself, is what I just realized.
No, it's great. It's great. It's authentic and raw. Yeah, I'm excited to have you here and get to chat with you about
Thank you.
relationship anarchy today.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Totally. I'd love to ask you the big question of what is relationship anarchy?
Yeah, because a lot of people would have a different answer to that, which makes it a little
Mhm.
bit difficult. So it's a good first question. For me and for the way that I go about doing it, I consider it to be not a separate thing from political anarchism, but just the way that that theory is applied in my interpersonal relationships. So if you're familiar with anarchist theory, then great. But if you're listening and you're like, I only know about ethical non-monogamy, perhaps that, that could be a little bit more confusing.
For
Um,
sure, for
yeah,
sure. Yeah, I would love to hear more about that. Do you think you could kind of like show those two lanes and how they kind of cross over and diverge?
I can definitely try.
Yeah, I'll join you. I'll join you in the conversation. You're not alone
Yeah,
here, but I'd
thank
love to
you. I
get to hear
appreciate
like
that, really.
other perspectives because I see it, but we're all going to see it differently. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So for me, so anarchism definitionally, from my perspective, is about understanding and then working to mitigate power imbalance,
Yeah.
hierarchy specifically. So, understanding various forms of oppression and the way that they affect ourselves and the people in our lives and the society that we live in. So taking that and applying it to my interpersonal relationships
Yeah.
is exactly what it sounds like. It's being in a relationship with people and being in solidarity with those people as well. They're not just, around to provide value in my life, nor am I around to merely provide value in their lives, but we are, whole people, complex histories, and we showed up not
Hmm.
as blank canvases. So I think it's worthwhile to do that work of deconstructing all of the various hierarchies and power imbalances in our relationships.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I recorded with Juan Carlos, who had wrote the book Relationship Anarchy. Have you read that one
I
recently?
haven't. They
Oh.
they offered to send it to me, and I was like, I am so terrible at reading physical books. But
Ah!
if it ever gets turned into audio, I'll be the first buyer.
Well, you can listen to the podcast. Maybe that will be some sort of cute,
That would be
like in
helpful. Give me a little
between.
bit of what's in there. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally,
Absolutely.
totally. So I talked to Juan about it, and we were
Okay.
talking about the that hierarchy being okay, but not hierarchy of authority.
Mm,
How does that land for you?
I hate it.
Tell me
But I'm
about
also,
it.
well, I mean, it is what a lot of people sort of come into, and
Yeah.
I tend to blame Chomsky for this one.
Mm,
He has this whole section of like finding justifiable hierarchies, and it's really only the unjustified hierarchies that we have to consider. And
mm,
I just don't really believe that that's true.
sure.
But then it also depends on how you're thinking of hierarchy, because a lot of people do come at it from the lens of it being sort of more of a method of organization rather than a system of oppression, really. It's complex. It's
Right.
I wish it were easier to talk about. I wish it were easier to write about. I wish I hadn't needed to spend, the hundreds of hours of studying that I've done to kind of sort of be able to talk about
Sure.
the ideas inside of it. But that idea that hierarchy is in any way, shape, or form an okay thing grates on me personally, just because of the work that I
Sure.
do and the way that I go about doing it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I feel like often for me it's like I'm lacking language, or
Mm,
I'll see that with my clients who are exploring different types of relationship dynamics where they will say, "Oh, like she's friends with her, but they actually want to embark on a real relationship." And I'm like, "Oh,
mhm.
like this language is like hurting me. Like you already have a real, what do you mean? Ah,
Right.
And so I
Right.
feel like
Yeah.
some of this I get like locked in the lack of language that we have often in these spaces. And so I'd love to like pull our brains together and kind of like think about this from two different points because
Sure.
like how do we sit with the fact that like I have a friend I've been close with for 10 years
Hmm.
and then a stranger, someone that I just meet and I start to connect with. How do we hold the like complexities of the years that we have built with that in a word that's not hierarchy? Like what language do we want to use for that?
Mm, I'm not entirely sure that I have an alternative option for articulating this
Yeah.
dynamic, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I do kind of question the premise of it, of, just because you've known someone for 10 years that they
Sure.
automatically have more, I don't know, what is it, more of a connection to you, more of a particular kind of relationship with you. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but did you want to elaborate, or I can keep
I
kind of
guess I
picking at
guess,
it.
yeah, maybe it's like the shared history of it, of like this is
Hmm.
someone who has gone, but you're right. Like, yeah, the question of if it's more valuable or something, right, is complicated. But like someone who has known your story for so many years and has seen you through so many different aspects of your life and your journey, there is such a depth to that, right? And that's like the beauty of long-term, all types of
Absolutely. Yeah.
relationships, right? Like
Yeah.
these people that go through our lives and are with us and see us and grow, that being such a thing that I feel like I sometimes have a lack of language to describe, oh, I have this new relationship, again, romantic, sexual, platonic, any kind, right? Where
Hmm.
I'm like,
Hmm.
ooh, this is like maybe like a budding sapling compared to like a tree with roots, like how do we kind of
Yeah,
describe that
absolutely.
reality of our relational world?
Well, let me sort of flip it to you. If
Sure.
Because a lot of times we have partners for many, many years, and we have children with them. And those children, when they come, are brand new. They have not seen us through anything in our lives, right?
Right.
They have not seen us at our worst. And actually, like most of the time, you're trying to almost insulate them from your worst, from the power imbalance there, because they're just kids. They're just babies. And they need so much from us. That is a different relationship, but it doesn't, I don't think, negate the value of the importance or the attentiveness that we have for our children just because that they're new.
Right.
And I think that that's the case with other adults as well, whether we like it or not. And I do think it's something to like. We are part of an infinite ecosystem. Everyone on this
Hmm.
planet contributes to your life, to the way that, I
Yeah.
live in a house I didn't build, on land that was stolen from people, on
Hmm.
clothing that I had zero hand in growing, producing, putting together. None of it, none of it. So to me, of course, there's the something special about having these relationships with
Yeah.
people who have been there, who have seen these things, who you have developed a shared language with, you developed shared experiences with, and an almost psychic connection over time where it's just a
Sure.
look from across the room and you're like, I know what's in your head, right?
Right. Right.
And then you meet someone new and they're exciting, but they're not that. But they're
Right.
still a whole person. So I
Oh,
think,
totally.
to have these conversations about the ways that our lives are different and the ways that, and I hate the language of like, I'm going to help you meet your needs and you're going to help me meet my needs, but
Yeah.
a way to sort of acknowledge the mutual capacity of human connection. And the theory that I'm kind of drawing on right now is Kropotkin, mutual aid as a factor of evolution. Not just it's not charity. These are, adjacent concepts. But I feel like I've rambled. I don't know if I've gotten the essence of what I'm trying to say across.
I mean, I'm hearing you. My brain's going places. This is how we
All right.
co-collaborate, right? We're
Yeah.
just
What's
we're
coming
just
up for you?
thinking. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was thinking about the ways when like yeah, couples privilege, people depending on their dynamics will just look at new people as like objects to play with and not even consider the full depth of like that's a human you were connecting with and that
Right.
respect. And so I'm hearing
Right.
that. My brain was also thinking about, when we get lost in NRE of platonic, sexual, or
Mm.
romantic connections because the
Mm.
novelty of a new person, right? Even
So exciting.
children, right? Like dynamics where
Absolutely.
like you get
People fawn over their children. Of course. Of course. They're their whole lives now.
totally, right? And so like
Yeah.
what does it mean like in the ways that like yeah, yeah, often some people can like completely negate that they've built so much of that history with someone for the new thing, right? All of that too. So I don't have any definitive answers. I guess just still
Mm.
feeling the lack of ways that we just don't have language to describe these things. Sometimes I like to think about it, my relational world as orbits. That helps me feel
Mm.
better,
Mm. Mm.
where I'm like,
Sure.
okay, like there's not a hierarchy here, but I have maybe this person who I am contact with my orbits daily on
Hmm.
this orbits every other day. This orbits monthly, right? And then we have the comet, and all of that. And that kind of helps me feel some sort of
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
language.
yeah. It's making me
Yeah.
think of a passage. I think it's Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and I might not be. I don't want to. I'm bad at sourcing in real
You're
time. I have to
good.
Google it.
It's hard.
But yeah, the concept that like each individual person is a planet, like a whole planet
Yeah.
is your life. No matter how close you come to someone, they will never live on your planet. They have their own planet. But you can kind of see it as a Venn diagram where like that overlap that you get to build together, where your planets change based on like the resources and ideas and experiences that are shared. But that's what the orbit thing kind of made me think of, because I think you're
Yeah.
thinking of it as like the amount of time that you're around someone, but
Yeah.
also like the depth of connection, because sometimes you meet
Sure.
someone once and they change your life. Right? And sometimes you don't know someone at
Absolutely.
all. They change your life through art or through media or through listening to a podcast, and you just never ever get to find out about it. It's just There's just such a
Hmm.
variety of experience.
For sure.
But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's exciting to think about the ways that we're all connected in that. I think that stepping into relationship anarchy has given me so many things, but one of my
Mm-hmm.
favorite aspects of it is the fullness to which I see all of my
Mm,
relationships, my relationship garden. It's, growing up for me, I was very like Christian, purity
mm-hmm.
culture,
Mm-hmm.
listen to Taylor Swift, The Notebook, right? So it's like
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
before I figured out I was queer, like the man that
Mm,
I'm going to marry and is going to be the center of my universe, right?
right.
To having
Right.
this much more expansive, like, yeah, garden or orbiting system of wow, these are
Mm,
all meaningful relationships. And for me, the amount of love and presence and fullness of my life that has brought, that paradigm shift has been
mm.
huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're speaking as well to a sort of shared history that a lot of us have of I don't know if I want to say this word. You might have to edit this out off but like Christofascism, like
Sure.
the fact is that we live in anyone who lives in the imperial core, so like North America, Australia, Europe, it's not a coincidence that that's the religion that we were, surrounded by growing up. That was a consequence of genocide. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to me to consider, all of the ways that what you're speaking to growing up in this particularly patriarchal way, the way that that's sort of almost inherently ingrained into the concept of monogamy and amatonormativity as a whole, and the way that we are isolated in these little nuclear family units where like these are our people, this is my kin, and if anyone else comes, they're not,
Right.
maybe we can trade or something like that, but I'm not invested in their lives and what happens after this interaction. um
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
queerness has a great way of messing with that, and relationship and non-monogamy and all of these different. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Growing up super Christian, I'm going to use this word. I was not allowed to hang out with someone that is a different gender than me, right? That was not
Mm-hmm,
allowed. That's too
mm-hmm.
dangerous. And then once
Right.
I figured out I was queer, it's like, well, what? Oh no. Like what do I have no friends now? Like where do I go?
Exactly.
Like that
It's so
concept.
isolating, yeah, to be
Totally.
different from the mold that has been created for you in a sense.
Yeah, or like the concepts of emotional infidelity. I was like, what does this mean?
uh,
Like, like I don't. As a queer person, I like everybody. Like, what? Who can I
yeah.
connect with without then like cheating? What like. So
Mm,
that really
mm.
rocked my world when I started thinking about that, and then I was like, whoa, and everything started to slowly unpack. And it's still quite the unpacking for me. I still feel
A
like
lifelong
every
process. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I
Yeah.
say is I'll get to be
Yeah.
90 still being like if I'm lucky, right? Still being like what is impacting me still? And it's deep. It's deep.
Yeah. 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 And I've wondered sometimes, I don't know if I'll ever have children, but if I get to this old age and I've spent all my life working on this, am I going to find a way to impart this onto the younger generations without falling into the same trap of like, here are the rules of interacting with other human beings? It's a very
Sure.
difficult thing I don't know, to sit with for me. But
And your content though isn't right?
right, right. But my content is voluntary. Anyone can kind of click off whenever they don't want to. But if I were
Mm,
to have children, or if there were young people in my life, that like a requisite for being in their life is
sure.
that they have to listen to me talk a lot.
Sure. At least for
Is there a way
18
for me to
years.
do that? Right,
Yeah.
right, right. And still give them the depth of the human experience to be able to bring around ideas that I don't like. Maybe they come by and they're like, I want to be monogamous. And I get to go, okay,
Sure.
right?
Totally.
Or is it a conversation where we collaborate on it? I don't know. Those are it's so many steps ahead that I can't picture the details.
For sure. And a lot of people in my community are exploring the kids question, right? And
Mm,
it's so like we were even talking about the rates of postpartum depression
mm,
afterwards. And I was
mm.
just like, yeah, like no matter what you're doing, we are not meant to raise kids in a two-person dyad in a house.
Exactly.
Like that would make anybody
Yeah.
depressed. You're having to wake up
Yeah.
throughout the night for that newborn all night and you have no community to help share that. Of course you're depressed. You have 3 months of maternity leave if you're lucky in America. Of course you're like what? Oh no.
Right. And then people go out into public and they see children who are dysregulated or quote unquote like misbehaving. And they're like, oh, this is a bad child or these are bad parents. And no one's like, the whole society is broken. Nothing is right here.
Yeah. And that's not even a
Yeah,
question of monogamy or non-monogamy. It's a question of community. And I think that's where relationship
right.
anarchy comes in. It's like, no, community, friends, community. Like we need to be in connection in networks, our ecology, to really rethink this and the ways that our systems have been so hyper individualistic.
Sure, yeah. And so I guess that's where my beef with some hierarchy is okay kind of is rooted in is that like the moment you start prioritizing certain relationships or certain dynamics, you affect the entire ecosystem, whether you're aware of it or not. So you might
Yeah.
as well have like a more open dialogue with all the people that you're touching and affecting and who add something to your life. Or you go the other route, which is to isolate yourself into a little nuclear bubble and hope for the get like best. And maybe you'll, maybe a handful of people will survive the apocalypse, but
Right.
I doubt it,
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. I've heard
Yeah.
other language of like prioritizing because, yeah, in a
Mm,
world where, again, all of the relationships that you're in, time and energy is limited. Love,
mhm,
abundant.
mhm.
Time and energy are limited. So, what does it mean to be conscious of how you're spending, oh, the language of money, right? Be
Mhm,
conscious of how
mhm,
you're using that energy. And in that way, then I've heard things like prioritize, like I'm prioritizing this rather than hierarchy. But again, it's still complicated, but like it is something I do have to think about of like of having enough energy for these relationships in the limited time. You know, I think about these relationships again as a garden. Like I don't know about you, but I've definitely been a plant mom where I've gotten too many plants and then go like, "Oh no, I can't water all of these." And I actually have to be really like conscious of which ones need more
mhm,
and like
mhm.
tending to and the realities of that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I relate because I'm someone who definitionally just I need so much alone time. I need so much alone time.
Yeah,
People come near me and
totally.
I get overwhelmed. It's a lot, you know? And yeah, the question of how to manage time and energy when love is abundant. And I do kind of, I don't know, I wonder about that because I don't think that time and energy are any less infinite than love. And I don't think that they're any less
Mm,
finite in a sense. You know what I mean?
mm.
The people that we find these relationships with or have affection towards or are attracted towards, like there are reasons that that's the case, right? Is there, you know, I don't quite know how to answer it in a simple way.
Yeah. I appreciate the friendship model. That has helped a lot with me. I think that often when I get, this is now kind of going into a world of non-monogamy concepts and
Mhm,
partnerships and
mhm,
all of that. Like for me, I find so much grounding in looking to a friendship world of like, okay, how do I do this with my platonic relationships and trying to
mhm,
create that level of energy over here in the romantic
mhm.
and sexual, wherever we draw those lines, right? But like that friendship model has given me so much grounding.
Mm. Yeah, and I agree with you, and I've experienced that as I think I can say with honesty, like the most care I've ever experienced has been in my friendships more so than
Yeah.
in my romantic or sexual relationships, because there is that sort of that desire to like first we're choosing each other and then we're going to choose to be in each other's lives and care about each other's lives. And when our circumstances changed, I have friends that I haven't talked to in a couple of years, and I know that when I pick up the phone, they're going to be right there for me. But I do think it could be more of like an open dialogue where, because I kind of make decisions about how much alone time I get for myself.
Yeah.
And I would love for that to not be as much the case. I would love to sort of divest some of that power. But then we have to talk about disability, and we have to talk about racialization, we have to talk about money, and we have to talk about, and it's all of these conversations that in and of themselves take up all of this time and energy. So
Yeah.
it's almost, I don't know, like kind of how do you put the cart before the horse, before the cart before the horse, sort of a, and I guess
Mhm.
that's the anarchistic process, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, to dream of the world of possibilities and to like see that new future and continue to take steps while in the system and the complexities, messiness of it, and also try to take one step forward into that liberatory space.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, for me, it's been really interesting. Yeah, I would not identify as poly. I don't think
Mm,
that doesn't feel accurate to me. I definitely, in the political game of it all, will say like, oh, I'm non-monogamous, particularly because,
mm.
I mean, depending on who I'm talking to, I think that signals a certain level of world building that is important to say. But
Mm.
yeah, I wouldn't consider myself poly, particularly because of the ways in which even that paradigm creates it like multiple partners, where it's like, where do you draw
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
line? Like, I actually have multiple relationships that are important. That's why I'm a relationship
Yeah. I
anarchist.
love the way you phrased it as like world building, like you're trying to signal to the people who can hear you or who are already familiar enough, and anyone who can't hear you can't hear you anyways, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that almost.
Totally, which happens a lot. I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but oh yeah, totally. I mean, I have a community that I feel pretty good with now, but in the expansiveness of relationship anarchy, I connect with a lot of different people in my community that aren't
Mm-mm.
all doing the same thing. And so sometimes I'll like throw out what I'm doing and they're just so confused, or I'll be talking about my worlds and you get that immediate, I could never do that.
Right,
I
right.
couldn't,
Or
I
just a
didn't
blank
ask.
stare, like,
Yeah.
right, right.
Which I think is a testament to how much of like when we're moving through the world and like we all do this, we hear content, we process for ourselves, what would this
Hmm.
be like if I was
Hmm.
doing this, and move from that world and then respond back, oh, I could never. It's like, dude, we didn't ask
Right.
you. We didn't ask you for that.
You're occupying a completely different point in space time. Like you'd have to have so much more of
Totally.
a shared experience for that to make. But I feel like the only thing about it that bothers me is the immediacy of it, like the immediate closing
Mm,
off of it, or like
yeah.
the explanation for why they want to be monogamous. Because I want to be true to the understanding that like I haven't lived anyone else's life, and I want to have room for them to tell me about their experiences also. But
Mm,
there are power dynamics involved. Everyone understands how monogamy works. Everyone understands the justifications for monogamy, and it's kind of definitionally you have to in order to choose to become non-monogamous. Like that's kind of a requisite. So people are starting at like not even 101, they're starting like kindergarten, like let me tell you about true love, and I'm just sat here like I don't know how to be open and engaged in this conversation because I don't want to be here.
sure,
But
sure.
that's a person, like I can recognize that as being simultaneously a personal problem and an indication of how much time and energy I have based on the way that the power dynamics are flowing today.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I try to hold it as like another culture, which is where I
Mm.
I was
Mm.
at with it. There was definitely the first time that someone mentioned non-monogamy and that they did non-monogamy, I looked him in the eye and I said, "If you loved me, you would only love me.
Mm.
I would
Mm.
never do this." And I walked away. Isn't it funny how I also used to condemn homosexuals when I was Christian? It was bad.
Right,
Oh,
right, right.
yeah. And then you find out you're one later, and then you say you'd never do poly, and then you're like, oh shit, So I'm always like biting my words over here. Like, what am I saying I'll never do that I'm
Right,
gonna come out being like,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, one day I
Um,
might. But also, it's
totally.
one of those things where, like, in your case, and I think in a lot of people's case, people's first introduction is being in a monogamous relationship and then having everything kind of fall apart at once instead of because you've spent your whole life being told what a relationship is supposed to look like and your love,
Right.
and you have to, and sacrifice and all of these things. And the first time you hear of it is your partner telling you that they don't love you enough,
Right.
or like that's the immediate like message that's being received, I think. Um,
Right.
Not great, not an ideal. We should teach it in schools. I think we should teach relating in schools
I
more so
agree.
than ownership. But here we are.
I agree. Yeah, because how I look at it is like it's a cultural practice, right? If someone wants to
Mm-hmm.
have sex with one person, beautiful. Choose that path, right? I think I look at it politically in the same way of having kids or not, where it's like
Mm.
currently we have done, I mean, it's not done, let's be very, very clear, but there has been a
Okay.
lot of work where choosing to not have kids is an okay thing to do and have a meaningful life choice that you can do. I won't say
Sure.
that's fully done to be anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
but we've done a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work as a society to be like, sure, don't have kids and have a meaningful life, right? And I feel like I just want the same sort of space for monogamy and non-monogamy where it's like choose to have sex with one person for your whole life. Beautiful. That's meaning making, as long as it's not the possessive controlling, but the choice of actually like, I want to only explore this with one person for the sacredness of that. Beautiful. As long as we have the equal freedom of the opposite side and it doesn't produce what I reacted with, which means you don't love
Mm.
me, that
Mm.
I'm not enough. All of that is the same sort of world of when you say, oh, I'm not going to have kids. Well, what is your life going to have any meaning? It's like we need to get into this space where it's truly like an option of either or. Both are beautiful. Choose your own adventure, my friend. And it's not about jealousy. It's not about not loving the person enough. It's really about like, how do you want to spend your time and energy? Do you want to have sex with a lot of people? Do you want to go through one person? And each path is complicated. Let me tell you, you know,
They are.
both.
There's no easy path. There's no such thing as
No,
an easy relationship. Although, some easier than others.
sure.
But yeah, no, I think I agree with you, and I feel like the only way to accomplish that dream of like you can choose whatever you like, you can stay or you can go, is to again acknowledge the coercion
Sure.
inherent to it, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of times I think when it comes to, and this happens in anarchist theory with anarchists and their theories and stupid books and whatever, but
Sure.
you come up with any concept like freedom of association, and there are ways to exploit that. There are ways for people who are on the top of a hierarchy to not necessarily be aware of their partner's inability to leave or their dependence or why, or make any steps to sort of make it easier for them. So it's just like, here are your two options. One of them is terrible. The other one is also terrible, but you'll live better. So like pick between those. And I don't like that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I see this unfolding in many generations. I think that
Mm,
future generations are going to have such an easier time with it because I'm existing right now, okay? And I am existing in the world of Jessica Fern, of all these different books that
mm,
have existed, and give
mm.
me the possibility where I'm not getting married to one person with a promise of sexual fidelity. Sure, maybe I would
Right,
engage
right.
in a legal process and the benefits, even a religious ceremony of it all, but there's no way that sexual fidelity is a part of that vow. Let me tell you,
Mm,
okay?
mm-hmm.
And so when I look at the younger generations who are going to come up into the world of us having these conversations freely, they're going to be in much more of that space of looking at it and being like, what do I want? Where the
Mm-hmm.
generations before who got so into one way of being, oh my God, do you know how hard, like as a therapist, like I watch clients who open up their relationships way later in life, and it is fucking hard
Brutal.
because
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
established years of patterns of how you relate.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas if you start with it at the beginning where you're like, oh, you already have two partners, I've got three, let or whatever number, like cool, like let's run in this.
Right,
Like it is so
right.
I do hold the weight of what it means to change and then see that I think future generations are gonna feel more of this liberation of this space because they're gonna
Mm,
start in a different path than having gone some of the traditional route of where people are coming to non-monogamy of like, wow, we haven't had sex for years. There's someone else that I'm interested in. Oh, I'm
right,
queer and I haven't explored this. I mean, like, it is
right.
so much harder down the line than starting.
That's absolutely true. Although I do wonder about whether it's going to be quite that linear. I think we're going to have, people of all sorts throughout, sort of going through
Sure.
choosing different lives and being examples and messing up in different ways, and then we learn. I don't know. It's complicated for sure, but you're right. That's like the as neuroplastic as we may be, it's very difficult sometimes to choose to rewire your brain, and then it happens. That's not quite. We have to prefigure it,
Right.
building the new within the shell of the old, and all of this.
For sure. I mean, yeah, we like consistency. We like patterns. I mean, this is why, like,
Mm-hmm.
even just like any sort of therapeutic dynamic between two people when you're trying to work with them, there's years of patterning that has built there. And like, even thinking about our own relationships, right? Like, if I think about my
Mm-hmm.
dynamic with my mom, right? Like, the ways that that has been built over the years to try and change that, these are hard things versus starting from the beginning. But yeah, I hope there's a world of people choosing a smattering of different relationships. But like you said, like part of that I think is naming the ways in which I don't want to say we don't have free will, but like, oof.
Oh, we could get into that one if you
Yeah.
wanted to.
I'm like, Foucault has a lot to say about that one.
Mm,
Yeah, you have thoughts?
yeah. Oh, I don't know if I have opinions. I'm not God. I can't tell you whether or not you have
Totally.
free will, but I mean, I don't believe that individual humans do to for whatever it's worth. Yeah, I'm a pretty ardent determinist, but I do think that we, like, as a collective, like humanity as a whole, has a chance to direct our future in a way that like no other being in the material realm has. You know what I mean? Like it's and you might know that you've have experience with a therapist. I don't. I've never done that.
Hmm.
I've been in therapy. I have a
Sure.
therapist, but the people's childhood and the way that people's brains are developed in a young age, and we can look into neurobiology, and we can look into circumstances, and it's hard for me to see that and to have done as much work as I've done to sort of mind my own thought processes
Yeah.
and still believe that people have free will. Like it's
Sure.
really only what you I'm only an anarchist because there have been anarchists, and because I could already access their theory, and because I was already marginalized enough to be interested in alternative options, and the privilege of being able to spend all the time reading and researching and talking to people. All of these factors combine to create my ideological
Totally.
position. So people aren't going to wake up one day and have that telepathically transmuted to them unless we do the work
For sure.
of
For
doing the art and
sure.
doing the relationships and being and working out those issues with the capacities that we have.
Mm. Sure. Yeah, I'm thinking about the ways that the feminist psychology movement came in and really tried to get us to re-understanding ourself in relationship, right? Like
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
study, the particles and the atoms, quantum mechanics has taught us that it's about the, situation, what's around you, what's
Right,
going on. And so thinking about
right.
ourselves in the same way of the individual is always shaped by the relationships to society, to our experiences. And my existential professor would always be like
Mm,
introducing these ideas to me, and I like argued with him for the last 2 years, and he'd be like, Nicole, free will within what's we have free will with what's within our existential awareness. And I
right,
say, cool, Dr. DeBose, but your existential awareness is shaped by your culture.
right.
So like
Exactly.
go back to
Correct.
that one of like, I don't know about it's like free will, yes and no, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you. I dated an existentialist once, and I can attest that you're doing the Lord's work.
man, I would say that if I had to describe how I work as a therapist, it'd be like feminist, existential,
Mm,
somatic. So
mm.
like often I feel like I'm like hitting the existential pieces and maybe you get it because you dated one where like I like say this stuff and people don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, damn it. But
Yeah,
it's
it's a
the meaning
struggle.
making, it's the world, when you really think about it.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I don't think that the existentialists are wrong necessarily. I do believe that the meaning of life is to give life meaning in the shortest possible way. But it's I don't know. I think that the way that that idea has been proliferated and discussed has been, I don't want to say it's done more harm than good, but it's done quite a lot
Mm,
of harm. And I think it's worth looking into that and to
sure.
fold that into our ideologies,
Sure.
um, if
Yeah.
possible. Yeah.
Which I don't know too much about, like personally. I don't know much about like the history of existential theory as much as it's like practical points in therapy.
Fair.
But half of what I always commented back from him was like, damn, like where's the social critique, which I guess comes in like more like narrative
Yeah.
therapy, if
Yeah.
you've heard of that, of like the ways that we have to examine the systems and the cultures that we're in and how that shapes the realities of
Mm,
our world.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's um well, I guess I don't want to speak too much on it because I'm not an expert, but I think that's one of the big holes in the in the section in that theory.
Sure.
Um, But yeah, there's so many modalities out there, especially for therapy. My therapist and I have gone through a bunch of different ones, trying different things, trying to figure out what works. And it's good that there's variety, but it also, took me quite a lot of work to understand that there were options other than CBT. So
Oh
it's again
yeah.
one of those things where like there is one set path, and then if it fails for you, then you get to explore other modalities,
Mm-hmm.
and so much of those other modalities are taken from different cultures and different
Oh,
experiences,
totally.
and it's just there's so much into it. Yeah, it's just hard.
Mm-hmm.
You zoom in and out, and it's just fractals in every direction. What do you do with it?
Sure, totally, totally. Which
Yeah.
for me, when I think about like relationship anarchy, I think about needing more narratives of meaning making, right?
Mm,
Like
mm,
the first, I mean, again, like I guess I don't want to always talk about non-monogamy in my
mm.
relationship anarchy, but it does feel so central for me, especially because I've learned to be able to explore sex with a lot of my different connections, and that being
Sure.
actually such a key part, I would say, of my closest orbiting
Yeah.
people is
Yeah.
that sexual and free love. But to actually have narratives where I have multiple of those going, where the fuck is my movie on that? Where's my book on that? Like, I am just
Right. Right.
scratching to find a meaning making narrative to feel okay with what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and it's tough because there's not a lot of. I think I know of a couple people who are working on it, who are writing books. You might
great.
also be. I don't know if you're doing research on it, but people are working on it, and people have been working on it. And one of the most exciting things for me about doing this and about these changes of my life is the more I dig, the more I find, the more I realize
Mm.
that people have actually been doing that for hundreds and hundreds of years, if
You're
not
right.
thousands, and we've
Yes.
just erased it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and a lot of the research I've been doing recently has been sort of centered on that archival violence and of the narratives that have been allowed to be carried forward and for what reason and what function they serve in today's society. But yeah, I think it makes perfect sense that you would be mostly centered around non-monogamy or these romantic sexual relationships because again, amatonormativity is so deeply intertwined with the way that the patriarchy works, with the way that all of the other systems work and the way that our world works today. Yeah, every time, like all of the systems, you know. It's
Totally,
yeah,
totally. And it's enjoyable, I guess, for me to be able to explore like ecstasy with multiple people, right? Like I
sure.
I love that space of being able to have my like network, my closest network of people that I have emotional support with and connection and give to, and also the freedom to have like lots of ecstatic pleasure together. Like it feels so good and expansive.
Pleasurable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great time. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's worth doing, I think, but not necessarily for everyone,
Totally.
which is what it comes down to, I guess. But
Right.
like I love that for you. I love that you have like, you know, they say it takes a village to raise a child, and I don't think that that changes as we get older. I think that we just kind of self-impose independence in a sense that isn't real. Just block out all of the other forces. So I love that you
Right.
have a village, basically.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And learning to like play in that village. Because yeah, you're right.
Mm,
Everyone's gonna choose different paths, right? Monogamy, not having sex, like these are all great paths for me. I'm like
mm,
playing in all these different
yeah.
dynamics
Yeah.
and still feeling like I just don't I want the like sex anarchy manifesto. Like, where is that for me? Like, because I'm just realizing for me, like, I've always had sexual connections in what, well, first monogamous world where it's
Hmm.
like one
Hmm.
person, whole storyline, and then some sort of non-monogamy world where it's multiple deep, and then to have this world where it's like multiple people of various different degrees and to learn the ways in which I want to connect and play with people and how that differs. Like some people
Yeah.
I don't want to make out with them. I do not want your tongue down my throat, but I would be happy to use a dildo and a flogger on you. And like
Right.
that sort of understanding of my psyche is
Yeah.
radical to step into. I like
It is radical. It is radical. It's I'm reminded of like difference repetition, you know.
mm,
It's everything is so individual. They're only once, only once. And at the same time there are patterns and you
mm,
can't really pick apart. We really want to, like as a society, we want to have binaries, this or this,
mm.
this and this, but these two things don't go together and these two things never happen together. And you know, but it's not that's not we self-imposed those rules. Humans decided that that would be the way it was, and then we lived like that.
Yeah,
And we could choose something
totally.
else because like humans, I think, collectively have the power to change the world over and over and over again if we don't eat each other alive, or rather, you
Right.
know, eat ourselves alive first.
Or end
Yeah.
it through climate change,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I
right?
mean. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. If we
yeah, totally.
cannibalize the earth we live on, then that won't get to happen so much.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so it's been such a stretch though. Like I often feel like I'm just
Mm.
like in the same ways where I'm scratching for language of like what is this? Where I'm trying to
Mm.
like also do the same thing with my sexuality where it's like very confusing because the types
Do
of
you want to talk
play
about that more? Like, I'm not sure I'm understand, but I also this is your podcast, so if you don't want to talk about it, it's
I
okay.
do want to talk about it. This is what I
Okay. Yeah.
do
Yeah.
here.
Tell me
Yeah,
then. Yeah.
totally, totally. Like kind of like what I was saying about like, okay, this is maybe someone that I in my community, someone I love,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful relationship,
Mm-hmm.
but I only want to play sexually when we're in a group dynamic. Like the
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one, like we talk about group psychology and how that creates different
Sure.
experiences.
Yeah.
Maybe the
Absolutely.
one-on-one chemistry isn't there, but God, when we're together with three, that's so how the fuck do I have that conversation? I'm like literally spinning over here in my head of like, what is like, I don't want to not have sex with this person, but I do, but like where and when? And like, I've just never gone through the process of having different sexual connections to different varying degrees
Mm.
and then had to
Mm.
find language for like these interesting feelings I'm feeling about that and like,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost
what?
like you have like it's like there's negative space and you're trying to find all the little corners that make up the shape that you can't. There's no word for it yet. I don't know how to talk about it yet, but I can tell you everything around. It's just it's messy.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
It reminds me of
Yeah.
like the therapy wheel when they have that like emotion wheel that
Oh,
you're
yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
maybe we start with these core and we go out where like maybe my sex wheel is
Mm.
like yes I want to have sex with this person but like what does that mean or like maybe even a better word like I
Mm.
want to explore eroticism and play I think I like
Sure.
those words
Sure.
better
Hmm.
what does that mean is that like topping and kink is this making out is this having a role play I mean like it's just so much further than my brain is still even comprehending what is
Hmm.
possible
Hmm.
and I as like someone who's particularly focused on sex and relationships, I really do think about the ways in which so many of us don't even have language, like go like way, 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 way far back to be like, this is how I want to be touched. let alone to
Yeah.
like multiple relationships and figuring out with each one how it's different because
Right,
folks,
right. And
it's
all the
fuck
consent
yeah,
dynamics as well of like trying to make sure everyone's
totally.
emotionally well and physically well and the power
Totally.
dynamics aren't weird. And I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, do you find that that's easier for you having a collection of people, like a village who have, I don't know if you have shared language or if you're developing that together, but do you find that it's easier to be in a group like this?
I think this is where I go back to what I said earlier about processing it
Mm-hmm.
with people.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I go to someone who's not a part of this, I could say, oh, I'm feeling this where I'm like unsure of how to connect with this person or what to do. And they'd be like,
Mm.
sounds like you don't want to have sex with them.
Mm.
Or I
Oh.
process it with someone in my group who's like where we're at, and they're like, oh, well, have you tried maybe bottoming or have you tried maybe topping where you do this, but not that? Like that sounds like what you're actually getting at, where like it's like if you're not from this world of expansive possibility and play, it almost goes into this binary of like, oh, well, then you don't want to have sex with them versus like, oh, have you actually thought about this or that or this or that? And so absolutely processing this
Yeah.
with people on similar state like pages is absolutely how I'm surviving in this.
Right, right. That would make sense. And I guess so. I'm guessing that this person that you're talking about isn't part of the circle, so it's not as easy as being like, here it is. It's someone on the outside that you don't have like a connection to be like, I was talking to my friend the other day about what I feel for you, and maybe you can go talk to, it's, I don't know. I guess it's difficult to introduce the concept to be someone's first in a sense when it's something that they're not used to.
Sure, totally. It's emotional work and a lot to do there,
It's a lot
right?
of, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And then how
for
much work do you want to
sure.
put in for, potentially topping once or, whatever dynamic that may or may not be worth it, the mental and emotional load of it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I feel like I'm getting more and more language to it and better. I guess that's just like as of current now
Mm,
here, this is like my biggest question struggle mark of like question struggle mark. Interesting.
sure, sure.
Um, just of like, yeah, figuring out more language to all of this and how to do it in a
Yeah,
way. Because it feels good. And then like the stretching out of that is an interesting living into for sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it's new, and so it's
Right.
gonna be there's gonna be obstacles. There's not gonna be a beaten path and a beaten set of rules that you can just kind of borrow. You got to make it up as you go
Right.
along. I'm curious to
Right.
find out, what by the time this podcast is released, whether because it's one of those things where like every time I look back on myself 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago,
Totally.
different human being, completely different. So like
Totally.
what am I going to have
Totally.
access to in a few years, What a fun process
Totally.
and not
Totally.
always fun. I don't want to say it's always a good time. There are difficulties.
We cry a lot.
Yeah, so much.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah,
If I could imagine out, which I'll probably maybe do for the intro when I come back to
sure.
but like if I could imagine out, I'm probably gonna have way more language than I am currently struggling with you right now.
Hmm.
Because when I
Hmm.
look back on my pleasure journey, gosh, oh my gosh, I remember connecting with this kinky, lovely individual many years
Hmm.
ago, and we were laying in bed, and they were like, how do you like to be touched? And I froze, and I had
Mm,
no language for that. And
yeah,
yeah, so if someone asked me
yeah.
that right now, I'd be like, well, let me tell you, here,
Got
like
my binder ready to go. Yeah.
totally. Yeah. So like I
Yeah.
can only imagine like in years forward, I'll be like, well, Sally, this is actually what I do now. And I say this and that. But like for now, I'm in my current consciousness, I'm still like, whoa. So I have so much, God, I love my life. I love what I do with my clients. I
Mm,
love helping people from all different like spectrums of this, of like where they're
yeah.
at, of being
Yeah.
able to name that. Oh, it's such like I'm so passionate about ending rape culture through the liberation of our
Yes.
pleasure,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole that's a whole thing. But
Rar.
and as a therapist too, I imagine you get to do something that very few people do, which is to be sort of a visitor on a lot of people's planets is the best way I can put it. And to really get to know their lives and their emotions that people don't get to see from like especially from like your relationship with the therapist is different from a friendship is different from
Right.
a relationship that's sexual. It's so on and so forth. It's, I imagine that you're just like a hoard of knowledge. You're just a little dragon with like a hoard of knowledge of like, how do I
Yeah.
put these pieces together in a way that works?
But Sally, I do not know how to do small talk. Like I'm like
Good.
I'm like so used to going so deep that I'm at a party and we're
Mm,
like talking about
mm.
stuff. I'm like, when are we gonna go there? And then like we just don't. That's
And
like
then
normal
don't.
party. But like
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
it up light a
yeah.
little bit, like that's such a stretch for me.
I think small talk is a lost skill, but
Yeah.
it helped me personally to learn that like people do that as a way to kind of vet you ahead of, to kind of just put out vibes and see if you're picking up
Sure.
anything that they're saying. And then maybe you go a little bit deeper, maybe you go a little deeper. Because I've had to
Yeah,
learn in my life that going deep right away can be very risky sometimes,
for
especially
sure.
when there's power that isn't been acknowledged or mitigated in any way.
Yeah.
But I hear you, small talk, not that much fun,
No,
to be
it's
honest.
not. No, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you look back on your anarchy journey, is there anything that
Mhm.
you'd want to say to yourself with your current level of
Everything.
consciousness?
I wish I could say everything.
Yeah, what
I
would you
wish I had
say?
known then what I know now.
Of course.
Oh man.
I know.
I don't know. I tell them to watch my YouTube channel, I guess. Read some books.
Do
I
you
guess
think,
okay, no, that's
yeah,
not
yeah,
fair. Okay, if I went back to younger me, I would tell myself to give them just a lot more grace. I think I was a very impatient person. I still am, to be
sure.
fair. It's something I'm always going to struggle with. But like I just think about the amount of time I spent like beating myself up for not doing it right away, for not having the answers, for not being able to articulate it, for not being able to do it right. I'm in quotations, but yeah, it has to be a process. And so many of the things that I look back on, and I remember feeling really like, oh, I'd failed here. And I
Mm,
hadn't failed at all. I hadn't failed even a little bit. I was exactly where I needed to be based on my circumstances, based on
yeah.
what was available to me at the time. And all of those failures are what led me to here. So
Yeah.
did I fail or did I succeed in a way that wasn't perfect? And humans
Right.
who don't have access to all of space time are just always going to be that imperfect, I think.
Right, right. Yeah. What does it mean to grow? Like, what are our expectations? Often, perfection, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anything but perfection, failure. It's like, oh God.
Right. Do it right and do it right the first time, or else, literally, or else. So
Yeah.
it's a very real pressure. But I'm learning I'm learning to slow down a little bit. This year has been one of a lot of reflection and study for me, so I've valued that.
Yeah. Good. I'm feeling that too of like, what does it mean to slow down and not constantly be edging my reality? Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
whoa, that like the ways that we were saying it's a never-ending question of the systems and how they impact us and our access to pleasure. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
constantly like
Yeah.
clawing at it, and I think
And
it's
it's so
time to slow
hard. Yeah.
down.
And everything I learned, it recontextualizes lifetimes over and over and over again. Like I look back on memories I had when I was a kid and I can see them differently now,
Oh
as an
yeah.
adult. That's what I wish I had. But there's no way for adult me to be child me at the same time. There's no way for me to go backwards, right? So
Yeah.
what about you? How would you respond to this question? What would you tell younger you?
So for me, I didn't know anything about anarchy at all
Mm-hmm.
until I
Mm-hmm.
had read More Than Two. And there was a
Mm-hmm.
small paragraph, I know. There was a
Yeah.
small, I know, complicated, but it was is how I got here, and
Amen. Yeah. I mean, same, right?
yeah,
Same. So I'm not
totally.
gonna.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was that small paragraph on relationship anarchy, and I don't know what it was about it, but it spoke to me in my body. And I remember going outside of my apartment and like skipping joyfully down the
Yes.
alley of just like,
Yes.
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 And yeah, so I don't, I like felt it right then. And I guess if I could say it right now, it would be like, keep going.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Follow that feeling. Like that is real. It is possible. And something probably very similar to what you're saying of like, how can I'm immediately thinking about my clients right now because I have so many
Mm,
clients who are, oh, I want more compersion. I want more compersion. I want more compersion. I'm
mm.
struggling. And I'm like, hold on a second. Can we pause to look back on all of the growth that you've had to be to
Right.
where you're at right
Right.
now? Like it is immense, my friend. So I think something similar to you of like, you're gonna go, you're gonna fall down, you're gonna constantly want to be better. And that is beautiful that you have that value system and the dream and learn that falling on your face is gonna be part of it and that you are defined by the
Yeah.
fact that you get back up.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And what you're speaking to as well with this, I had a sort of similar experience when I
Mm,
first picked up. For me, it was polyamory, and I was like, and I went from like, okay, maybe this is something I could do to like, this is the only way I ever want to interact with
right,
really. And then
right,
from there, I went
right.
into relationship anarchy, and I was like, no, 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 never mind, never mind. I
Totally,
only want to do it this way.
totally.
Yeah. but I think that we've been sort of disconnected from our intuition in a lot of different ways, and
Yeah.
reconnecting with that and that spark of like, follow this, it's strong. And you start to see little signs all over the place that are like, this one, do this thing. And it
Yeah.
feels good. And I don't know. I think speaking to compersion as well, like a lot of people really want to be, myself included, 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, but you're exactly where you are for a reason. And I think that it's worthwhile to listen to those anxieties about what they're telling you about our present society. A lot of the time, I feel like people are talking about, you have to have stronger boundaries and you have to not worry so much about what other people think and how they're impacting you. And I kind of feel like we need to go in the opposite direction
Mm.
of like really listening to the ways that these messages are impacting you and then doing something about that as well.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be like, you can close that off best you can, and some people have, and some people are wonderful at meditation and wonderful at all sorts of different practices, but the world continues to exist around you. And I feel like for me personally, like I've always felt the most grounded when I've been able to follow my bliss in a sense while making active changes in the world around me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
because
absolutely.
that anxiety is not from nowhere. You're jealous for a reason. That's speaking to something, right? But
Yeah, I'm thinking about the ways in which it's like our life force, or the feminist psychology movement would talk about zest. I love that word.
I'm
Like
not
that's
familiar. Tell me about it.
like
It's
that
just a feeling of
this energy for life, that
mm,
excitement that you spoke to of like, oh, this is
sure, okay,
possible, and
okay,
like and
yeah,
feeling that. And yeah, for me it's definitely been like a dance of like, what does it mean to follow that, and at the same time with equal measure my commitment to community, and kind
right.
of keeping those together and coupled together for that, like the individual pleasure and the community commitment, and like what does it mean to do that. And yeah, compersion is not going to happen if if your needs aren't being met across the board. Okay, that doesn't mean it all
Mm-hmm,
has to be
mm-hmm,
with one person,
mm-hmm.
but if you I've talked about this where it's like, we are social beings. We need relationships. If your one person is the only space that you are getting fulfillment for those needs from,
Mm-hmm.
the idea
Mm-hmm.
of taking away your one source of water is not fucking gonna happen. Are you
Right.
kidding me?
Right.
No. And so stepping into a world where you have multiple sources of flowing water, suddenly we don't hold on to that so grippingly tight. And I think that's part of it too, where it's like we can do all the work, but until you're met in a wide variety of water sources, don't beat yourself up, my friend. That's
Right. That's just a representation of the culture that you are a part of, that you were born into without necessarily asking. Right. Here we are.
for sure. And then the gender
Yeah.
dynamics of that,
And then the gender dynamics, yeah. A lot of the work I've been doing recently has been I've been delving into like abuse and domestic violence research specifically. And that dependence on another human being makes it so easy for vulnerable people to get caught. And then people on the outside will look up and say, you have to leave. You have to leave this abusive partner. And it's like, what? Well, okay, are you going to then meet all of my needs? Like, what am I going to do afterwards? My whole life is dependent on, all of these different factors. So it's really difficult. And I think that people really underestimate the power involved in these dynamics, for
yeah,
worse. I'm not going to say for better and for worse, only for worse, really.
right. Because it is a need. We
Right.
need community,
Right.
we need relationships. So you're right. Like the difficulty of people who are in those domestic violence situations, there are needs that are being met for connection. It's
Right. And maybe also
painful.
financially, and maybe also,
Yeah.
material in all of these different ways. It's
Yeah.
yeah, you can't just tell someone to leave. You're just, creating the same circumstance for them. You just, I'm not going to get into it too much here.
Right. I know.
But
Yeah,
in the future, perhaps one day.
for sure. And yeah, good. Go down that path, please. Yeah.
Oh, I intend to.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like, but even when we're not in that situation, of course, then like it's like I guess I'll just speak from my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
Having multiple sources of water has radically changed my jealousy and compersion. Like it is I can't,
Mm.
like, God, like it just,
Like a 180 almost.
holy shit. Yeah, totally. Because I
Yeah.
was like, this
Yeah.
was my one source of that. And I was like, oh my God, I have to share. Like, okay, I want this, but this is scary. And then to have multiple and then be like, oh, like, okay, yeah, go. Go. I feel sourced. I feel good. Like what, go. Like
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
great. Like that like, and not in a avoidant way of go. I know that person's going to stay in community with me. I know they're connected, but like I'm just not as threatened because I'm more resource abundant. And I think that
Sure.
like the gender
Sure.
dynamics too of like most men like being like only finding emotional connection in a partner in a heterosexual sense with
Yes.
women.
Yeah.
I mean, we are in
Yeah.
a complicated situation, and this is
Absolutely.
absolutely why men are having the hardest time with non-monogamy, and most women are leading this movement.
I think that's fair to say now. Initially, that wasn't necessarily, I think that men have been cheating on their wives for much longer than we've been
Also,
doing radical free liberation. Yeah.
apparently the research shows that it's actually pretty similar. Once, you're right, once we got liberation from finances,
Yes.
apparently the
Yes.
research
That
just
was a
shows
big
that
one.
we,
That
yeah,
is why
yeah,
monogamy
totally.
exists. Yes.
We've
Women
cheated
couldn't have bank
now,
accounts. Yeah.
but now
That's
we
the whole
cheat
thing.
at the same
Right.
rates.
Right.
Yeah, which is
Right.
wild.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
That's the power dynamics that people don't necessarily consider a lot of the time, but that's absolute. And I think that once you have that, once you have, a garden or many, many pools of water, you realize how wonderful that is. And you want that for the people in your life as well. You meet someone and they don't have that. And you're like, how
Mm,
can I help? How can we
yeah.
make sure? How can I pool my resources to make sure that you also have more connections? Because it's also a relief. In my opinion, in my perspective, from my experiences, I feel much less sort of weighed down by the needs of a person when they
Right,
have other people that they can go to.
right.
Yeah, it's just an all around good thing for everyone, I want to say. But at the same time, I still want to leave room for the people that aren't quite on board yet or might never be on board. That's,
For sure.
the breadth of
Yeah,
human experience.
exactly, right. The diversity
Yeah.
of cultures, right? I hear you. And yet I also want to name the complexities of like ending rape culture, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
we are in connection with other people, we do not have this expectation that one person is going to meet all of our needs. We understand that each person might not fully align. And so when we are in these dynamics where we look at one other person and say, you must meet all of my sexual needs and align with me on all of my sexual stuff, there is coercion
Yes, there
in that
is. Yes.
dynamic. I'm sorry.
Yes. Don't be. It's
You
just a thing that people
know?
don't want to say out loud, but they need to say
Fuck.
that out loud. Like
And
we
I
can't
understand.
fix it until people understand it, right?
Right. And there's compromise and saying, like, okay, you don't want to engage in this sexual act. We're monogamous. I'm not going to do it. And that, okay. But God
Mm-hmm.
damn it, when I hear monogamous people say, like, oh, my partner doesn't like this, but eventually I'll get them there. I'm like, holy fuck, that is
Oh,
so scary to me to hear. Like,
yeah.
what? Like,
Yeah.
what?
And where are their friends? And why is no one stepping in? And because it's normal, it's not even considered a thing to be concerned about to begin with. This is the norm. That's what we're fighting up against, the entirety of the anyways, it's a lot.
I know, but it's the heart of it all right
Yeah.
there in some
Yeah. Yeah.
ways.
Yeah. And it's complex too, because people get to make those choices in those relationships where I don't want to, but I want to make my partner happy. And that's an honest choice that people can
Right?
make for themselves, but you can't know that from outside, right? And you absolutely can't say that from a position of there are actually no other choices. There actually aren't better options. This person actually can't, you know, we don't have an easy way to make sure that everyone's sexual needs are met without
Right.
coercion. Like that we haven't set up society like that. And
Totally.
we have the power to change it,
Totally. And I
you
think that a
know?
similar dynamic is thinking about the world where it's like, oh, do I want to have kids or not? Well, I know my partner wants to, so I think like I'll do it like that, right? And until we have a world where the option of not is possible, we can't really
Mm-hmm.
even comprehend how much of that pressure is inside of us too, right? So like these
Sure.
questions of like, oh, it's okay to compromise and do this. It's like how feasible is a world of non-monogamy for you? Because if you think about that world and you say it's impossible, I could never, I'd be too jealous, then I don't free will. But that's a question of free
Right.
will right there. Like,
There
is
you
your
go.
compromise
Right.
really a free will when the
Right.
other option seems impossible?
Great. And when you're making those compromises, like who are you affected? Like those children are now being born to at least one parent that may or may not be super enthused about having someone attached to them every day
And you see
for the rest
that.
of their life.
I've seen that.
Yes. Yes. And it's hard because people don't want to talk about it. People don't want to talk about, regretting having their children and don't want to talk about the difficulties
Right.
of it, but it's real. It's real whether we talk about it or not. And Jungian psychology would say that
Sure,
this like
go for
seeps
it.
into our like collective unconscious and all of our different bigotries and biases and all of the ways that we take out this frustration in society in ways that we don't want to
Yeah.
acknowledge, right? So It's hard.
Totally.
People have a lot of trauma work to do. Everyone has a lot of trauma work to be doing, I think.
Yes, and I think specifically about sex.
Sure.
Like specific, like I just see so much work in this area. I mean, when you look at repressive religions, that's where we see the most of the sexual violence and problems, right?
Yes, yes. But you can't really disconnect that again from from class and from racialization and from disability and all of these other factors. They're not separate things, really. They're just I don't know how to describe it. Like when you put light through a prism and you see the different colors, it's all just the same light,
Sure.
though. It's all the same energy.
For
That makes
sure.
sense.
For
Yeah.
sure. I want the book on this sexual anarchy. Where is that? You know? Do you
You
have any
got to write
recommendations?
it. I'm not going to write it. I'm
Ah.
working on something else.
Oh
But if you write it,
man. Totally. I keep thinking about it. I do. I really do. I do. I
yeah.
eventually, yeah, I get too excited. I don't know about you as a content creator. I get excited.
Mm,
Like I get really excited and I'm like,
mm,
ooh,
mm,
it's the creative push. It's the energy. It's that
mm,
zest for life. You're like, oh, I could do all this. Then you get so excited. I get overwhelmed. And I'm like, dude, you still have to get
mm.
out of grad school. Like you can't even get like I can't even go, you know? So
Right.
I'm like,
Well, you
man,
could write a book without being, but yes, I hear you. You have all these other commitments and obligations to get through first. It's only so
yeah,
much time and energy.
totally,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Taking it
Yeah. And it's so
slow.
easy. Yeah. To get excited and to have the image of it in your mind. And then you go to put it into like an outline and you're like, ah, fuck. How
For
do I make all these ideas go
sure.
together?
For
Yeah.
sure. And I think
Yeah.
part of it too, at least for me, is the difficulties of the professionalism construct that
Mm,
I've gone through for the last like 5 years of like writing papers in a very specific voice, right? So the idea of coming into a
mm.
podcast space where I'm dynamicing with you and I'm doing my like natural voice and personhood, easy. The idea of sitting down for a
Yeah.
book, I suddenly feel like I need to show up in a certain way that's not my own voice.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm like,
Interesting.
I must be professional. I must type, 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 type like
Yeah,
this.
like a
Fuck.
respectability politics sort
Yes.
of meets
Yes.
anarchism, and then you're like, how do I? Yeah, yeah,
Jesus.
yeah, yeah. But there's
Yeah.
nothing respectable about this, I think, is the point. I think that even aspiring to respectability
Yeah.
speaks to the invalue, like the values that are inherent to our systems.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So let the voice be free, maybe is the advice to
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
in some ways.
Well, I mean, I don't know. This is something I kind of struggle with academics in general. Is that you're constrained by the rules of academia and by the incentivization that goes into making sure that your researchers are funded and that your programs are, you know, producing what the university expects you to produce to a certain degree. And it's just difficult. Not impossible, but
Yeah.
a lot of consideration needs to go into it, man. So I don't I don't envy you.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, this space is fun though, right? This is the space where
Mm-hmm.
I do get to be my full self. I gave you my raw, unprocessed consciousness
Yeah,
today
if
of
you weren't going
like
to write a book, you could just like listen to your podcast and be like, okay, this is what I need to cover for this
exactly.
chapter.
It's
Or
true.
you can
That's
just let the
very true.
podcast exist as it is, you know, different art, different things for different people.
That's
And
what I've thought too. Like, what does it mean to
yeah,
honor this? And like,
yeah,
even the hierarchy of being like, oh, I must write a book to be like,
true.
like,
To be for real about it, but like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's such a joy to collaborate and connect. You know, you were talking about the community and how that impacts me. I really do feel like all of these conversations, when I get to show up as my raw and authentic self, I'm seen in other people and pushed and challenged and grow. And so I'm really always thankful to
mm-hmm.
have this space with other people.
Yeah, it's the most enjoyable part. See
Yeah.
the interesting bits, the similarities and the differences and all of that. It's
Hmm.
the joy of human connection or something.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of those most valuable parts of our journey, I think, is really the relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Arguably, that's why we're here.
Hmm.
Thank you for having me on.
Totally. Yeah, I want to hold some space too. I always check in with my guests and we take a deep breath at the end. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners? Otherwise, I can guide us towards a closing question.
No, stay tuned, I guess. Believe
Yeah.
the impossible. Who knows?
We'll continue to run, you guys. Yeah.
Right? Who knows where
Yeah.
we'll be a year from now? It'll be a different world, maybe. Maybe not.
Yeah. I see that world as stronger. I see that world as more grounded. I see that world of like taking even deeper breaths into pleasure. Like it
Mm.
feels good when I think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, all of those and also more desperate, I think. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, if it feels good to you, then I'll ask our closing question.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So the one question that I ask everyone on the podcast is, what is one thing that you wish other people knew was more normal? I know.
And I knew this question was coming and I didn't think about it.
Trust your gut, trust the intuition.
Yeah. I think what I wish people knew was more normal was the ability to transgress, the option to transgress, you know? It's more normal than you know. People don't talk about it. People talk about it in code. People put it into their artwork, but you meet anybody and you will find the ability to transgress. And I think that tapping into that will lead us to where we want to go. I think that like no matter who you are, there are parts of your tradition, of your culture, of the hierarchies that you've been informed by that you don't like and that you may not necessarily want to speak to or speak to but don't know what to do about. And I think that listening to those parts is going to get us to a future where that is a little less hierarchical. And I say a little less, but again, like my ideal future is a world without hierarchy, point blank, period. So it's as radical as you could possibly imagine it. And it's a muscle. It's a muscle that I've learned to work and that I'm still not, it's not as strong as it could be, but I can feel myself getting better at it.
Hell
I
yeah.
can see what I can imagine in ways that I could never imagine when I was younger. So I think it's worth doing. And there are ways and there are other people. You can talk to them sometimes and you can, swap ideas and swap recipes and see what you come up with. It's wild.
Yeah.
What a world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's what anarchists have always done is dream,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So here in our context of the now, knowing that we'll pass on and that other people will take up the torch of that word, I think it's important
Yeah.
to continually
Yeah.
dream of what is possible. And I really love
Look,
that.
nothing is possible until someone thinks it up. Someone has to
Right.
imagine it first. So.
Yeah, and the creative muscle that is. I often
Mm-mm.
I often talk about it in terms of fantasies and sexuality, right? Of like
Sure,
dreaming of what's
sure.
possible and that being a muscle with my clients, right? Like you
Oh,
have to
yeah.
start, but
Yeah.
also in terms of I find that muscle so deeply connected to also the dream of envisioning a different culture, a one of a radically different power sharing than we have right now, and both
Yeah.
of those being like a creative process that we can absolutely continue to flex.
Yes. What about you? Any final and last notes? Anything coming up for you?
Oh. I guess I'm really touched by our conversation about what it means to go back to our younger selves. I love throwing that question in for my guest every now and then, and I'm always wanting to grow and get better, as are you, as are I think all people. We're always
Sure.
wanting to grow and
Yeah.
get better, right?
Yeah.
And just to like give ourselves compassion for the ways that part of that growth means messing up. And to I really loved what you had said of like I was right where I was meant to be. And what does it mean to allow myself that right now as I'm trying to find these words, as I'm scratching for all this, like you're right where you're meant to be. It's good. It's good. It's messy, but it's good. And like feeling into that, I'd love to take that away from this conversation. And I hope all of the listeners can take that away too, of like wherever they're at in their journey of unpacking their pleasure, to feel into the you belong right where you're at right now. It's
Oh,
good.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I think a beautiful articulation.
Yeah. Well, it was such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Pleasure to talk with you. What a fun conversation.
Yeah. Where, for people who are connecting with you and love your ideas, where can they find your content?
They can find me on YouTube. Again, I am on hiatus at the moment, so maybe when this comes out, that won't be the case anymore. We'll see.
Yeah.
But it's Anrel, Anrel, short for anarcho-relating. That's where most of my content goes. Yeah. Other than that, you could follow me on Twitter, but it's bad for your health. So
Well, it's so great to have you on the podcast today. Thank you for
so
joining
good to be
us.
here. Thank you for having me.
Great. If you enjoyed today's episode, then leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. And head on over to modernanarchypodcast.com to get resources and learn more about all the things we talked about on today's episode. I want to thank you for tuning in, and I will see you all next week.